Can I do apologies for absence first, please?
None received, Chair.
I think we are, aren't we? I think we have, because I see Councillor Graham and I don't see Councillor Yarrow, so unless one has morphed into the other without telling me. I don't see any other apologies, but I definitely see one. Any declarations of interest? The minutes of the meeting of 16th November in your bundle. Am I happy to take those as good? Agreed? Good. The agenda we're considering will be the one that was published. It's all in part 1. We're taking the same running order as we were given. So, there we go. There are no petitions tonight, so it's straight consideration by members of the items in front of us, many of which will be familiar to you in various guises. This is not one of those items full of brand new stuff. You've seen most of this before, somewhere along the line. Right, Neil, can you start me off, please, with item 6?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. First item is the old vinyl factory. You're fully aware of this site. This application has been called in by a local councillor. It's for a temporary consent of 18 months for a 50 by 25 metre banner wrap around the eastern elevation of the cabinet building, which is the building you can see there, and you can see highlighted in red is the face of the building that the wrap will be attached to. That's a constraints plan, so it's in the EMI Thorn conservation area. It's within the overall old vinyl factory master plan. There's a sort of a larger site plan showing the cabinet building in context with some of the other buildings that are currently already have consent for refurbishment, including the one immediately adjacent to where the wrap will be. That is the existing face of the cabinet building, so it's semi-derelict, it's in a poor state of repair. It does have consent for refurbishment, and the idea of the proposal is to wrap it, that face of the building, which is the worst looking face of it, for a temporary period of 18 months before the building is refurbished. So it's an image that you're familiar with. We know that members aren't particularly keen on it. There's a site photo, and there's some views from around the site, so it can actually shows you hardly see any of that face of the building from anywhere other than inside the old vinyl factory site. So you can just, unfortunately my red light isn't showing, but you can just see. No, it just clicks on. You can just see. Oh, there it is. I'm pressing the wrong button. So that's the building in the background there. You can't see it at all from that part of from outside that part of the site. You can just about make it out to the gap there, and again there. So the idea is that some parts of the site are likely to come into use soon and will be available for letting, and it will assist, as well as making the site more attractive, hiding what is a quite ugly semi-derelict building. It will also assist with the letting of some of the office space in the refurbed parts of the building. As I said, we know members' views of the image. It's the unadulterated image that was first shown to them. As I've said, there will only be very limited views of the work from outside the site. It is for a temporary period of only 18 months. However, given the temporary nature of it, the limited views of it from outside the site, and the opportunity it provides to screen the cabinet building, which is currently a bit of an eyesore, and it will assist with the economic regeneration of the site. Officers consider the impact on the character and appearance of the building and locality, including the conservation area, to be acceptable in accordance with relevant policies, and the application is therefore recommended for approval. Do you want me to go back to the 3D, which shows the extent of the image? Yeah.
I think it's straightforward. We know the image. It's a question of for 18 months. Are we going with it? The risk is that they don't come back with anything else. We get exactly what we got now. So it's 50-50, I think. But Councillor Morgan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We've seen this many times now, and I don't want to be holding up this sort of application, and it is only a temporary holding, so I'm quite happy to go with the officers' recommendations on this.
Councillor Duncan?
Thank you very much. Yes, I can understand how members may be tempted by all this, but you can see where the applicant is coming from, I hope. Having gone back and said we don't like your image and we don't want it in a permanent display, if we now allow it to be here for 18 months, there's no way that they're going to change it, or indeed would have to. What inspector, if they appealed that, is going to allow something when we've let it be on hoardings on a whole face, a very tall building, for 18 months? I mean, it just, I think this is just really manipulation of the system, manipulation of us, and we need to be aware of that.
I think the circumstances are materially different because this is a temporary permission, and the reason Neil did his presentation the way he did was to explain that it is this isn't about creating a totally new facade. This is about screening an existing facade that's having a detrimental impact on the conservation area and let's be frank about it, from the commercial perspective, the ability to let and move forward other parts of the site that potential occupiers are going to face that facade. So I think there are a number of, the council can say that this is materially different from the other car park application.
Well, obviously it is different, we know that, but if we're quite prepared for it to be there for 18 months over quite a large building, as we said, as all sides have said and acknowledged, can it be seen from the railway? I thought it could be seen from the railway. So it's not just a question of seeing it within the site, but it's seeing it from the railway. And also, if this is going to be, it struck us, that picture, as just being, a lot of young people sort of screaming in horror like they were a horror movie. Is that going to be something that people taking up parts of the development that is going to be occupied first want to look at? Either we have a view about this image or we don't, and it needs to be a consistent view, I would suggest.
Okay, I'll take Councillor Curling, then I'm going to take Councillor Higgins, and then we're going to move this one way or the other, because I think people's views on this are pretty well known.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My view, as you say, it is well known. It's not the sort of picture that I would like to see at all. And I would like to remind the committee that we're here with this picture originally because when it was originally shown in the sort of perforated form, I think it was Councillor Higgins pointed out that it looked like the Sex Pistols and it was totally unacceptable. Had it been the Sex Pistols and totally unacceptable, would we have any dissent around this room that it was totally unacceptable? I think the image as it is unacceptable.
Councillor Higgins, if I take you and then I'll move this forward.
I was the only one on the committee that actually, I don't have a problem with this image at all. This is heritage. This is the Beatles. This is the 60s. EMI made its money that way, gave jobs that way. I think we're missing the point here. It's not an image to upset people or to distress people. It is what it is. If you look at the image and you're into music, you know exactly where it is and where it's from. And there's nothing wrong with Sex Pistols. Fantastic band. But there we go. That's
so are you happy to second?
I'm happy to second it. And to
right.
move it on.
I've got a proposer. I've got a seconder. I'm therefore going to put it to the vote that we approve the officer recommendation. All those in favour, please clearly show. I have 5 in favour. All those against, please clearly show. I have 3 against. It goes through. I move to item 7, which is in the same site. Neil, would you give us just a brief summary of this one, because we're not we're doing something very specific here.
Yes, I think we all know where we are. This is the Reserve Matters application. It's already been approved once by committee, subject to finding agreement on an alternative wrap around the perforated metal skin that will go around the multi-storey car park, which is phase 5 of the master plan. We've had 2 stabs at it, we've been unsuccessful, so we haven't managed to reach agreement. I think members have make it clear that they don't think it's a suitable permanent wrap for this particular building. So in order to avoid holding up the commencement of works on the car park, which may have knock-on impact on getting away other parts of the site, which because the car park is required to be in use before they can be brought into use. Those employment parts of the site can be brought into use. So we've come back in, and now we're asking members to approve again the reserve matters application, but this time with an additional condition requiring details of the external image for the building to be submitted by way of condition. The understanding being that condition will be brought back to members for them to agree. Thank you.
Before anybody else adds a commentary to that, I'm going to add one. It'll be a little stronger than understanding. It will be minuted that the approval of the image will be brought back to Planning Committee for approval. And on that basis, I think that's the basis I'd like to take us forward. I had one left, one right, and I'll go on. Councillor Oswald, I'll go first, then Councillor Edwards.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, I'll move the officer's recommendation.
I'll second it. Thank you.
All those in favour, please clearly show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 1 abstention. That one goes through. Right, I move on to Ruislip Bowls Club, which is item 8, page 37.
Thank you. This application seeks full planning permission for the extension of the existing clubhouse building, demolition of 2 storage sheds, and the erection of a standalone building to accommodate lockers and storage at Ruislip Bowls Club. And that's a site plan. That's a constraints plan, so you can see that it's in the Ruislip Village Conservation Area, and that there are also a number of listed buildings. You've got the library, which is a Grade 2 listed building here. You've got the Ruislip Mott and Bailey in the open space here, which is a scheduled ancient monument. And there's also here another Grade 2 listed property on the other side of is that Berry Street? Yep. And the proposed extension would be to the front elevation. If I take you to that, that's the existing building. That's the proposed that's the existing and proposed roof plan. So that's the main clubhouse building. As you can see, the extension roughly measuring 40 plus square metres there, and you can see the 2 existing sheds which are going to be removed and replaced with this approximately 25 square metre building here. The proposal is for them to be timber clad with tiled roofs, which would match the appearance of the existing clubhouse building. No objections are raised to the principle of the development in this location. It is not considered that development would have any significant adverse impact on visual or residential amenity. The proposal is considered to comply with relevant local London plan and national planning policies, and accordingly approval is recommended. I should say the consultation period for this application is still running and doesn't end until tomorrow, so the committee is therefore being asked to delegate authority to the Head of Planning and Enforcement to grant planning permission following the expiry of the consultation period, subject to the conditions set out in the report and the addendum, and subject to no new matters arising that have not already been addressed in this report.
And in relation to the matter in the addendum, can I ask the Head of Planning for a comment, please?
Yeah, I actually attended a pre-application meeting with the applicant and the architect, along with our conservation officer, Sarah Harper. And so the plans completely follow Sarah Harper's recommendations, but I do remember Sarah Harper saying at the meeting that she didn't think that Historic England would impose an archaeological condition because the land had been disturbed and it's quite a small addition to the building. Now, obviously, in the addendum, members will note, and this has literally just been received the last couple of days, Historic England have asked for a full archaeological written scheme of investigation. Now, except I'm already asking for delegated authority, but if members were happy to extend that slightly further, I'd like to ask our conservation officer if she could contact Historic England's archaeological team and just check with them that there really is a justification for this planning condition. Because my personal opinion is it's slightly onerous given the circumstances of this site.
Higgins.
I'll second that.
Sorry, Councillor.
Just a very quick one. Not against the thrust what's going on here. It's just the condition 6, the need for it, trees to be retained. I didn't see any trees or shrubs on the plans. There is grass to be retained, but condition 6 doesn't cover other vegetation.
Those ones there, look.
They're not being touched. Where are they on the plan?
Are there trees? I'm sure there must be trees down in there somewhere.
Doesn't show on the plan, but I think that photo seems to show.
Well, it looks like a large tree there somewhere. We don't want disturbed too much.
The wording here says very clearly, trees, hedges and shrubs shown to be retained on the approved plan. That's what it says.
Yeah,
Where are they? They're not there.
Well, there are hedges. I can see hedges.
The intention is not to affect that willow tree, that hedge, or to disturb any of the
Of course.
landscaping. So
Okay.
but I don't think it's onerous because it's not asking for any additional information. It's just saying
Don't wreck what's there.
What it should cover, though, is the grassing that needs to be retained and replaced outside, which this doesn't. That's the point I'm making. It doesn't cover grass.
What grass?
Just need other vegetation stuck in there. It's the grass the issue here.
Is the grass the issue? I don't know. I've no idea.
So let's just say landscaping in general.
It's a bowls club. It's got to have grass.
I do understand historic England because you don't have to dig that deep if you put foundations in. On that note.
Are you happy with that as is, or do you want it amended, Councillor?
My preference, I don't believe we should be allowing that whole area to be patioed over, is my view. I think it should be
Where is it shown
retained.
as a
Green
patio?
space should be retained, and it should be conditioned as such.
So,
I don't think it is. But
I mean, there is, obviously the extension does go across that existing hard standing, so there is some additional hard standing area proposed either side.
We got grass either side of it.
So you want that referred to in the condition?
Neil, can you?
we've cut and pasted the condition in there without giving a great deal of thought about the site and its application here. That's my
Hang on, the head of planning is just having a quick look for me. And he looks a bit perplexed.
I'm just thinking that we may have actually covered it through a different condition because we said that they've got to comply with the plans, and the plans show grass.
Well, if we added a 1.4 to plant materials, including land.
Yeah.
Right.
And other vegetation including grassed areas. Let's say that. Other vegetation including grassed areas.
As shown on the plan.
I absolutely agree.
Right.
Agreed.
Can we now approve it subject to that?
Yes,
We have a proposal, we have a second. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Good. We're making progress tonight. Item 9, former contractors compound, blah, blah. This is a hotel, never mind what it's described as. This is a reserve matters application for a hotel at Heathrow. I'm not going to go for the whole...
Thank you, Chair.
Hang on, I better let the officer just explain it briefly.
Outline consent was granted in 2014 for the erection of a proposed hotel development, up to 660 bedrooms, approximately 30,000 square metres, with ancillary cafe bar and other stuff. And the current application seeks approval of reserved matters of appearance, landscaping, layout, scale and access in relation to that outline permission. The submitted scheme complies fully with the parameters approved at outline stage. The proposed design, finish and appearance of the building is considered acceptable in the context of the surrounding area, and the proposed layout and access are considered acceptable and no objection is raised in this regard. In relation to the proposed landscaping, further planting and detail has been sought by the landscape officer, and this has been provided as set out in the addendum. The landscape officer has reviewed the amended plans and raises no objection to the proposals. The scheme is therefore recommended for approval.
Just quickly reading the addendum, I think what we're largely saying is we can't do any planting. I'm very quickly summarising 2 pages, but I think that's the conclusion we're reaching. Huh?
It's got some.
Yeah, but
They've done the best they can.
They've done the best they can, right, thank you. It may not be recognisable as a lot of landscaping. Councillor Duncan.
Move officers recommended.
Oh, thank you very much. All those in favour, please clearly show. Thank you very much indeed. That one's approved. Right, I now get to item 10, which was deferred from our last gathering. For some highway...
This application seeks full planning permission for the demolition of an existing office building and multi-storey car park and the redevelopment of the site to provide a new office, just under 23,000 square metres, and an associated multi-storey car park and cafe. This application has previously been presented to the Majors Committee and on 16th and was deferred in order for further information on the proposed highway mitigation measures to be provided. Following Planning Committee's resolution to defer the application, a meeting was held between the applicant's transport consultants and our own highways engineer. Subsequent to this meeting, the applicant has confirmed acceptance of the requirement to increase the obligations towards improvements to the local highway network from £150,000 to £500,000. This contribution remains independent of other contributions sought to mitigate the impact of development, such as the £150,000 contribution towards public rail improvements and £30,000 towards improvements to the canal and towpath. The applicant has also provided an additional plan to show potential highways mitigation measures, which I will get to eventually. That's that one there. Additional comments have also been received from the Council's partnerships and business engagement managers, stressing the importance of the Bridge House scheme for the future of Uxbridge's office sector. The site fronts onto Oxford Road and is in between Colne and the Grand Union Canal. The site is within, but on the northwestern boundary of Uxbridge Town Centre and is within an archaeological priority area. It's considered that the proposed development would result in an acceptable visual impact on the amenities. I'll go back to some of the plans. In fact, I think I'll go to the CGI of the proposed scheme. Is considered would result in an acceptable visual impact on the visual amenities of the site, the wider area, the adjacent green belt and conservation area, and nearby listed buildings. The proposal would not have any detrimental impact on the amenities of occupiers and neighbouring units. The development proposals accords with the Safe Development Plan policies, Local Plan, Part 1 policies, London Plan and the MPPF. Accordingly, approval is recommended subject to conditions, the completion of Section 106 legal agreement and including the increased contribution towards highway mitigation as set out in the report. And I've got my colleague Saeed Shah here to maybe talk in a bit more detail if you've got any questions about the highways mitigation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Well done. That's what I say to officers. Well done. 500 and keeping the 150,000. I would go with officer recommendation, and obviously that's fine. But there was one other point that I did ask from the last meeting, which you were going to go away and find out, was on the roof there was a balcony, and we want to know how high that balcony, the fence around the top of the building thing is. Barrier. There's the word.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry, I should have put that in the addendum. It's a metre high, which complies with building control requirements.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Anybody got any other issues on this one this time round? I'm seeing no hands move in my direction. So, can I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Morgan. All those in favour, please clearly show. That one is approved. Thank you. And I now move to item 11, which is Stockley Park Phase 3, which is a park, I think, in short.
This development, the development phase 3 Stockley Park included the gifting of parcels of green belt lands to the London Borough of Hillingdon for landscape improvements and for them to be used as public open space to provide a benefit for local residents of Hillingdon and to mitigate the loss of green belt land on the site. This application relates to those land parcels. They're indicated there. There's 6 of them, all located within the green belt, quite widely spread apart. And the permission seeks land formation or contouring, landscaping, fencing, and provisions of ancillary footpaths and bridleways together with other ancillary works. The site is currently owned by Prologis, and once the landscaping works have been completed, they'll be handed over to the council. The principle of using these land parcels for public open recreational space would be acceptable and is supported by local, regional and national planning policy. The proposal would enhance the beneficial use of the green belt through providing greater opportunities to access the land, providing new recreational space, enhancing the landscape, the visual amenity and the biodiversity of the land, and generally improving what is currently damaged landfill land. Development is not considered to raise any concerns with regard to its impact on neighbours, highway flooding or air quality. Overall, the planned The proposed development meets the strategic policy objectives of the London Plan as well as the aims and objectives of local council policy and the MPPF, and is accordingly recommended for approval subject to the conditions set out in the report. Thank you.
Anybody, or are we going to really take this one forward? Oh, I've got three hands. Higgins was first, and then I saw two hands on my left.
I would go with officer's recommendation.
Councillor Duncan, you were clearly next.
Thank you. Do I understand from this report and the plans, it talks about contouring, but there's no appreciable increase in the height of this, considering what happened previously on this site?
That's right. So it's quite a subtle sort of recontouring of the land.
And will it be accessible for people in wheelchairs? Because at the moment I pass by this, and I think some of them would need a hoist.
There is commentary on access in the report, I remember. Just while I've got officers checking.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. Yes, similar to my colleague, Councillor Duncan, some parts of Stockley Park are inaccessible for wheelchair access. Unfortunately, this looks a little bit better. If this is only gently undulating, I think that's the word, then I think it's acceptable. But yeah, I mean, certainly for wheelchair access, I think that should be well, it should be accessible, really, shouldn't it? Thank you, Chair.
What have we got?
Thank you, Chair. We have had comments from the access officer. And basically they make some suggestions about the entry points, so they think they should be increased. So currently it's showing 824 millimetres wide. They should be increased to 875. In most part, the footpath achieves an acceptable gradient. There are some places where it doesn't, but he suggests a bonded gravel that should be used, that should make them more easier for wheelchairs to access. So there should be some conditions that reflect that.
But I'm sensing that may need a strengthening.
All entry, yes. So condition 5 suggests all entry and exit points, including pedestrian access gates, shall measure more than 875 millimetres wide, and where footpaths do not achieve a gradient, they should use a bonded gravel. But
yeah, hang on.
Sorry,
the head of planning has.
For that condition to work, it needs to say, notwithstanding the submitted plans, all entry and exit points, because otherwise we're going to have a conflict between conditions 2 and 5.
The two hands are up on my left.
Do you have authority to make that change, please?
I will give you that, providing committee give us authority to approve it in a moment. But sorry, one.
Yeah, if I could just say, we're concerned about the gradient, and I think that in certain parts you may have to actually dig into the land. You certainly could just not go along it as it is now. So when you say that there should be bonded gravel, there actually needs to be a change in the gradient that is there, I'm afraid. And I think just putting down bonded gravel as opposed to self-binding gravel would not be the answer.
These grounds. Hang on.
Sorry, if I can. I'm just having some slightly different thoughts that might help members on this. I think this is one of those cases where if we push the applicant harder, we'd get the details before we issued a planning approval, which I think would be something that members would certainly welcome. So one way of doing that would be to delegate to the chairman and Labour lead that the application be approved once plans are received and shown to them that address condition 5. Because I actually think what you're saying is correct, that we could impose a condition that then may have a risk whether it can actually be delivered, and I wouldn't want that, and the way around that is to force the plans up front.
Definitely I agree. We need to see it on the plans, because otherwise we've given a blind planning permission that may not be implementable, and then you know, we're in a
So
bad
if
position.
we,
So if the plans can come in, if they, presumably, I mean, they've done this work, they will have surveyed the site, they've produced this, so
well, let's see
presumably
what they have
they've
done.
got the more detailed plans available, but at present, as it stands,
So we
and
happy
these
to,
don't show enough detail.
And
It isn't accessible.
and this would be one I think would be good for officers to share with Chairman and Labour Lead for reasons I won't go into, but I think it would be a good one.
happy with that? Okay. Seconded? With that change, that condition 5 has got to be satisfied between myself and the Labour Lead. All those in favour, please clearly show. Thank you. That one is approved. 6:30. Thank you very much indeed.